It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Prop Swap, where America buys and sells sports bets. Get the best odds in the country at PropSwap.com. All right, I see all your questions. Andrew DiCecco's here to answer them. If you have questions that you want Andrew to answer, he is on the Boardwalk Honda hotline, and you can post them now in the video chat or on the text board, 609-403-0973. As Inside the Birds, Andrew DiCecco joins us here on a Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday. Now, he used to do Happy Hour Friday. Then he fell off. Now he's back on Happy Hour Friday. It's good to have you back on Happy Hour Friday. It's a little lighter, Andrew.
Yeah, it sure is good to be back on Fridays, man. How you doing?
Good, man. Like now on Happy Hour Friday, you can have a cold IPA. You can have a beer while you're doing it. On Thursday, it's a little tougher. You got to be a little more serious. You good with that?
Oh, yeah, you know.
All right. I want to get a couple of opinions from you looking back at some draft stuff. And I'm reading this article. These are from the coaches, college coaches, and some of the things they said about the draft. And this stands out to me about Devonta Smith. And it says, this is from an SEC head coach saying that Philadelphia got a steal in Devonta Smith, likening the 2020 Heisman Trophy winner to Eagles star Hassan Jackson. An SEC defensive coordinator added, the Giants wanted Devonta bad. They were pretty livid when Philly moved in front of them. But would you liken Devonta Smith to a taller version of what Hassan Jackson? I would almost say he's a more polished player, more polished receiver than Deshaun.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure that I would agree with comparing him to Hassan Jackson. I actually think that they're very different players. Deshaun is more he's smaller. He's slighter build. I believe he was only 5'10". Devonta Smith's about 6 foot. He's more of a volume receiver than Deshaun will be. Deshaun had more of the vertical element to his game. I don't necessarily think that that's going to be Devonta's game at the next level. I think he's going to be more of that short to intermediate guy coming through with the tough catches over the middle. And he's just a tougher player and someone who I believe will be just, someone who's not going to, a receiver who's not really going to leave the field. So I think that they're a little bit different in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that the Giants were pretty livid when Philly moved in front of them, I think that's an interesting story. It really chronicles how much the Giants had zoned in on taking him at number 11 there, and that had a really on-the-fly reverse course and get out of there. But one of the things that was brought up was, and we talked about this on Tuesday, was if Philly was at 12, would they have gotten the option to make the trade with the Bears? But something else that was thrown my way, which was, did Dallas have both options on the board? Did Chicago call Dallas and say, we'll make the trade, and then Howie call? Did they have both options on the table at the time before that pick? Is very interesting, don't you think? If you're Dallas and you're weighing adding a first-round pick next year and moving back to 20, or moving back 2 spots and taking Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, and that's something that I don't know that we'll ever know. It's kind of, it would make a lot of sense to think that both teams were in play there, but I mean, you have to think that if Dallas were to move down 2 spots, then Micah Parsons would have been there. So it's interesting to look back and kind of gauge what was necessarily the case then. But
now, if you're Dallas, would you rather what you ended up with, Micah Parsons in the 3rd round pick, who I can't think of off the top of my head who ended up being that pick?
Kelvin Joseph, the corner. Yeah, I mean.
Or would you rather 20 and a 1st round pick next year?
Well, they're getting a linebacker in Micah Parsons who, when you look at their current linebacking situation, they've really prepared for the future, and they added one of the best defensive players in this draft. They didn't get cute. They stuck to their board. They took their guy, and and their third-round pick, Kelvin Joseph, is a position of need that they really had. They obviously really like the guy. He has a lot of upside. Like I was saying, I believe he only started 9 games at the college level, so there's a lot of questions as to whether he can be. You don't really know what he is. You don't know. He hasn't shown that level of consistency yet. But when he did show at Kentucky was that, you could believe he had 4 interceptions. He was a ball hawk, and he's very fluid. So, I mean, pairing him next to Trayvon Diggs, I think Dallas is really happy with the outcome.
Actually, the player they got was Chauncey Golston was the pick that they got from Philadelphia, the 3rd-round pick. That's who Philly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Philly traded the 3rd-round pick to move up 2 spots. They ended up drafting Chauncey Golston from Iowa at number 84. So the article, this was from The Athletic, that was a league executive that questioned, should Dallas have moved back with the Bears and taken the 1st-round pick or moved back 2 spots? So, in other words, you would have got like Kwity Paye and a 1st-round pick next year, or Micah Parsons and the 3rd-round pick this year. Which haul is a better, haul in the long run?
Yeah, I think coming away with Micah Parsons is a difference maker. Like I've said throughout the pre-draft process, his skill set really translates to the modern NFL defender, and he's going to be an all-pro and for a very long time. And he's going to replace. He'll be a mainstay there on their defense, and they're a difference maker. And I think that's what they were looking for, and they didn't settle. So
yeah, all right.
Kudos to them.
Couple things. All right, I see a lot of questions coming in for Andrew, which we will get to. I want to kind of quickly go through the list of guys. We did this on Tuesday. We went in depth, but I want to get Devonta Smith, a wide receiver 1. Is that like the way that you would place him as a wide receiver 1?
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he came out with that title at the end of training camp. I think he's going to have that continuity with Jalen Hurts. I think I picture him as I envision him as more of a volume receiver and someone that's never going to really leave the field. He can line up all over the formations, and he's just tough, physical, and I just think that he's going to be an every down receiver. So I do envision him as a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I want to kind of get your thoughts on what these guys, roles on the depth chart could be this year. So Landon Dickerson, he's going to be a tough one, I would imagine. But where would you see him this year as a backup, fighting for starting time? How do you see that if he's healthy?
Well, if he's healthy, I definitely see him challenging Isaac Seumalo at the left guard spot. I think he's that good, and I think that he's just more. He brings some nasty, and he's technical, like a technical savvy lineman. He plays with a mean streak. He's athletic enough, and I just think that he's that good. That if healthy this summer, Mike, as we get towards August, I think he could really. If he's going to unseat someone, it would be Isaac Seumalo. But if not, I think I envision him as the top backup behind Seumalo and Jason Kelce.
And the interesting thing to me, too, is Jason Kelce has played all 16 games. I think it's 7 out of 8 years or 6 out of 7 years. You almost wonder when's the injury bug going to bite him one of these times. And now they finally have a guy. Because quite frankly, when Kelce has had to leave the game, even if it's for a series or so, like last year he had that elbow problem, he had to leave. It's been a mess. They really didn't have anybody ready to take over that center spot.
Yeah, and Jason Kelce, that's it's a testament to how tough he is. He's not someone it would have to be really bad for Jason Kelce to come out of games, obviously. And, if Landon Dickerson's not ready to do so, to step in, they also have Nate Herbig. Let's not forget Luke Juriga's another guy that they were really high on last year. He was an undrafted free agent, and he was promoted to the active roster. So they have some guys there, and in the event that Dickerson's not quite ready to step in immediately.
All right, the role for Milton Williams, how do you envision them utilizing him this year?
Well, I think he's going to be the 3rd defensive tackle on the rotation. I think they're going to use him primarily as an end, and then when, get into passing down situations, they're going to kick him inside and really take advantage of his interior pass rush, where it really makes it tough for quarterbacks to step up in the pocket and, gets the defense off the field. So that's kind of how I see them utilizing him. It's really good because he's in a good spot with Philadelphia because you have these 2 guys in front of him, and Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, that are really every down defensive tackles. And it gives Milton Williams a chance to really acclimate himself to the speed of the NFL, develop his play strength, add some size, but he's still going to be impactful in his limited snaps that he does get.
Now, they mentioned, I think Howie Roseman mentioned, compared him to like a Malik Jackson. who, by the way, Malik was on the show with us last year and said he did not like playing defensive end. He preferred to be a defensive tackle. But do you look at, Milton more like that? Or I kind of wonder if, Vinnie Curry was a guy who moved inside, moved outside the way they used him. Is that how you kind of see them, or more inside than outside?
Well, I think ultimately he's going to be more of an inside, and he's going to be primarily an interior lineman. And look no further than Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave's contract. I don't know how much they factor into the. I don't know if they're going to see this, this rebuild, see the end of the rebuild. And I think this year, however, you're going to see him take some snaps at end. They don't have a ton of depth after Josh Sweat on the depth chart, so. He'll kind of utilize like the Vinnie Curry was in that regard, but I think moving forward, I always envision him being an interior player. So, all
right. So the next guy up we want to get to, but before we do, there's a question that kind of goes in that direction. It's from let's see, Frank, and he wants to know, hey Andrew, what corners out there do you think would fit the Eagles scheme that Gannon is going to run? And I guess some of the free agent guys like Steve Nelson, Richard Sherman, Garyon Conley is still available, Brashad Breeland. They're the ones that are off the top of my head. Any of those corners fit cover two?
I think Steven Nelson would be a decent fit. I mean, I think the only reason why he's out there is because he hasn't been able to settle on his price range might be a little high for what teams are willing to spend, and teams wanting to see what they can get in the draft and trying to eliminate having to sign a veteran free agent. But if you're the Eagles looking at their depth chart, I mean, there's not much there. I mean, you have Slay and Maddox, who's an uncommodity, but then you have Zach McPherson, and you have Braylon Arnold and Craig James and Kevon Seymour. Those are borderline NFL players, depth players, cornerback 4s and 5s. You cannot go into training camp with them, nor do I envision that the Eagles will. I think they may have a plan. It could be signing a Steven Nelson. It could also be trading perhaps an Andre Dillard maybe to a team that is offensive line deficient for maybe a mid-level starting corner or a young corner that just didn't work out somewhere else. So I think that they do have a contingency plan.
By the way, 5 minutes ago, Adam Schefter reported the Eagles have signed or claimed former second-round pick Kerryon Johnson off waivers by Philly from Detroit. Any thoughts on how he could fit in?
Yeah, as another change-up runner, he can certainly challenge Jordan Howard for that role, for the number 2 role, I think. And he's not even. He feels like he's been around for a while, but I believe he's just 24 years old. Very limited usage, injury concerns with him. It got really crowded there with Detroit. The reason why they added all these running backs is because Kerryon hasn't proven he could stay on the field. And I always liked his upside when he was played at Auburn. I thought he was going to be a nice player in the NFL. Hopefully he can put it together. A change of scenery will be what he needs. I mean, it certainly can't hurt to claim someone like that off waivers with that kind of ability, and he kind of adds another body to that room, which is starting to get a little crowded.
Yeah, catches the ball. It's funny whenever somebody who has some sort of, I want to say, high profile, he's not a high profile, but as a second-round pick, gets released, the Eagles have always been, Eagles, because Howie Roseman makes every call. Funny, I didn't think that with Kerryon Johnson because of what you just said is there's a lot of guys in this room, but he's the guy who catches the ball out of the backfield. Obviously, I guess would be him, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. Those are all similar types of guys. Do you keep 2 of those guys, or do they all battle and only one remains?
Well, I think Boston Scott finds himself on the hot seat. Jordan Howard's also on the bubble. The only ones that you can really assure a roster spot to are Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. And I think the Eagles are doing right by adding all this competition, because obviously competition brings the best at everybody. Yeah. Nobody should kind of be typecast in the roles or just be assured roster spots just because of the limited bodies. I mean, I think that was the case with Corey Clement last year. I have to think that there were better options out there on the free agent market that could have made more of an impact. He really didn't do much of anything last year, but I think now you're really starting to see they're really making guys have to earn their roster spots, which is what should be the case every summer.
This is interesting. Of course, breaking news on a Friday here. Andrew DiCecco here to break it down. Kerryon Johnson, the second-round pick from a couple of years ago from Auburn, just got released a couple days ago by Detroit. Philadelphia had claimed him off of waivers, so there you go, some news there. Let's go back to you where you see these guys' roles this year. What kind of role do you see for McPherson?
Well, I'm sure think the Eagles envision him as an outside corner. I think he's going to ultimately settle in as an inside corner, and which will kind of knock Vontae Maddox out to that positionless type of player where he can move inside, outside, safety, and do a number of different things in that regard. Like I said, I still think that they're going to add a veteran outside corner, which they really need to. It wouldn't really be fair to McPherson to throw him out there if he's not prepared to do so. And, you don't want to throw a rookie out there prematurely. Sometimes it can really stunt their growth and affect their confidence. But I do think that he's ready right now to be a nickel corner. And I really like his ability.
Is there any of the guys on the roster, Andrew, is there any guys on the roster, Seymour, James, Graylin Arnold, some of the guys that I'm not remembering because they've kind of been here for Michael Jacquet, right? Yeah. Are any of those guys outside corners? Are they that? Hey, we don't know about them, but they're
outside corner. Jacquet is an outside corner. I just don't know how effective he is as an outside corner. Obviously, we saw him get exploited against Dallas, of course. But we'll see what happens with a full off season and being able to work on some of his deficiencies. And now, if there's tape on him, he can kind of see where his flaws lie and hopefully get that ironed out before training camp. He has the wingspan. He's fast. He was a former wide receiver. He has all the athletic traits that you want. But I mean, he got exploited. Plain and simple. And he's really got to work on that if he wants to stick around, even as a cornerback 5. Craig James, to me, he can play outside. I think he's better inside. Graylin Arnold is just an inside player. I think he can play a little safety as well. Seymour, to me, is an outside player. Again, I think he has severe limitations, and I would put him kind of on the back end of that. I think that he would probably be the guy that would be the first to go out of that group that I just mentioned.
All right, you kind of touched on Gainwell a little bit at running back. A lot of people like this guy. He's the steal of the draft. Everybody's excited. They just brought another running back in here, so it's going to add there. But does Gainwell, in your opinion, make an impact this rookie season? Is he a guy that plays enough that he, is an impactful player?
Yeah, I think so. And you look at, I don't think he's going to ever be a volume runner, but I think that he's someone that has the traits to take advantage of mismatches on offense. He may be used sparingly, but they're going to take advantage of his ability to catch the football, align all over the formations. As a change-up runner, he's not super shifty or anything like that, but he does get north and south, can pull away from defenders, catches the football well. And I think that's ultimately going to be his role. And kind of like if you remember how Westbrook was used back in 2002, I think he only had 46 carries that year, if I recall. But, I mean, I certainly think Gainwell's going to have more than that. But Westbrook made cameo appearances, but he was very effective when he did so. And I think now that you have Kerryon Johnson and Jordan Howard and all these guys in the picture, I think, you kind of get to gradually, ease him into the flow of an NFL offense, which is going to be best for him.
All right. Marlon Tupelotu, is he different from Williams in that he'll have his own role, or do those two kind of battle for playing time? Like that, one of those is the third guy, the other guy kind of doesn't get a lot of playing time, or do they have served two different roles?
Well, I don't think they're going to battle for playing time, considering where they were drafted and everything like that. And they're different type of players. Milton Williams is more of a pass rusher. I think Marlon has more of he's good lateral quickness. He can make plays outside of that confined space, but he's more of a run defender. Honestly, I think that he's better suited to do that. I kind of envision him as a DT 4 or 5. He can certainly usurp Hassan Ridgeway, who right now has a stranglehold in that 4 spot. But I mean, I believe he's played 14 combined games in 2 seasons. He's effective. Has been effective when he played, but I mean, can you really count on someone like that going into the season? And Marlon has plenty of upside. He was one of my favorite day 3 picks. Surprised that he lasted that long. So I do think he's going to make the roster, and he'll make a contribution as a rookie.
Andrew DiCecco. All right, last couple of guys. Taryn Jackson. Taryn Jackson's a guy I know that you like, but does he have a role this year?
I like Taryn Jackson, but if anyone's expecting this twitchy, fluid pass rusher with an array of moves, that's not really him. He's more of a stout, run-defending defensive lineman that wins on tenacity and power at the point of attack. He needs to work on his bend. He's not really ready to step in there and give, a number of snaps from off the edge. He's more of a developmental player. I think the Eagles would ideally like him to make it as the fifth defensive end. I think he has more upside than a Joe Osman, for those wondering, but I don't know that he's ready to step right in and make a contribution early as a rookie.
And you said Tuesday Osman would be his one challenge you would battle. Those two might battle for one spot, and there's not a lot of depth at that defensive end position, as we know. There's a lot of
no, there's not.
Right, they are very short at that position. Jacoby Stevens, as we touched on Tuesday, could use him at safety or linebacker, but he's one of those guys that I think some people feel that he just has that leadership and that will to win, and it's almost like he'll find a way to get on the field regardless of position.
Yeah, I mean, we all thought that. I mean, I know I did about Casey Tuho last year as well, and that's great to have that leadership and will. But I think that for him to have a chance, they really need to find a plan to add some weight to him and make him a linebacker, because you can take advantage of his sideline to sideline, range and his ability to sniff things out. He's not really a back-end coverage player. He struggles with, back-end range and athleticism. But I do think that, there's a role for him as a, depth linebacker and special teams ace on the Eagles.
All right, last guy is Patrick Johnson, who listed as a linebacker. So it'll be interesting in that linebacker room. They did it to Jannard Avery. They moved him to linebacker. Patrick Johnson, kind of similar, where he kind of played some end, move him back to linebacker. And is he, just to be a special teamer in the 7th round isn't a bad thing, but is he a guy that has any more role than that?
Yeah, Patrick Johnson, Mike, is the exact player that you take a shot on in the 7th round. He has all the pass rush traits you want. I think he only fell because teams were wondering, do we make him an end? Is he going to be a stand-up rusher in a 3-4? Like, what is he? 6'2", 240. He doesn't have the length that, the desired length that teams look for. But I think that there are traits there that can be developed, and if the Eagles can find a way to stash him on the roster, I think they certainly need to do so, because he does have some value. Might be a special teams player out of the gate, but I do think that he can be a rotational rusher and really affect the quarterback in that regard.
All right, Andrew DiCecco for a full breakdown of his draft notes, InsideTheBirds.com, as he grades the draft haul over there, so you can check out his full grades for that group. We talked a lot about it on Tuesday in depth. And if you missed that conversation, it will air tomorrow during the Best of the Sports Bash. We will have our full conversation breakdown on the NFL draft from Andrew's appearance on Tuesday's show. And if you missed it and you want to hear it now, you can go to our YouTube channel. As always, Andrew's back on Tuesdays and Fridays here for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Happy Hour Friday. Go have a cold one, man. You deserve it.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Good talking to you. I'll talk to you Tuesday.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.